So a while ago I made a video responding to Rationality Rules, where he was wrong and I was right. But then shortly after this I saw from a YouTuber called Mancheese that actually Rationality Rules had some pretty decent takes on a lot of topics outside of that one particular area. Particularly, he has a pretty comprehensive video on the whole issue with trans-identified males, or so-called trans women, participating in women's sport. I'll leave a link to that video in the description section below. But then just recently I saw a video by a YouTuber called What Do You Meme about how Rationality Rules had appeared on the Atheist Experience. Subsequent to this, the Atheist Experience released a statement, and I'll insert What Do You Meme's reading of their comment.
So a couple of weeks ago, Stephen was featured on the Atheist Experience with Matt Dillahunty and Alex O'Connor, who's Cosmic Skeptic. And yesterday we see that the Atheist Experience posted on their Facebook this. Recently, the ACA Board of Directors was made aware that guest co-host Stephen Woodford, YouTuber Rationality Rules, has made ignorant and transphobic videos and statements on his social media platforms in the weeks leading up to his appearance on the ACA shows. Transphobic, meaning he's spreading a fear of transgender people. We would like to make it clear that we do not share or condone his opinions or attitudes, and that we fully and actively support equal rights for the LGBTQIA+ community. We acknowledge that the ACA did a poor job in showing our support by allowing Mr. Woodford to make his appearances on our shows without either addressing his controversial views on the air or asking him to refrain from appearances until he's released a clarifying statement on his channel. We failed to communicate our feelings and intentions in a timely manner to our volunteers and fans. We sincerely apologize for the pain and anguish. We sincerely apologize for the pain and anguish our failings have caused our viewers, volunteers, and our ACA family all over the world. We love the trans community and are deeply distressed to have caused anyone harm. We have let you down, and we intend to do our best to earn back your trust. The ACA is working quickly and diligently to ensure this kind of mistake does not happen again. We will be coordinating with hosts, co-hosts, and staff to communicate any potential issues with the guests well in advance of when they are set to appear on any ACA production. The ACA will not knowingly allow any ACA production or publication to be used in a manner that's inconsistent with our mission and position statements. We would love to hear from you. Yeah, right. Our ACA family. If you have any ideas or feedback on how we can do better, please email us at president@atheistcommunity.org. Sincerely, Board of Directors, the Atheist Community of Austin.
Now here's the thing, the statement that trans women have an unfair advantage over, actual women, is not a judgment call. It's not saying that there's anything wrong with somebody being gender non-conforming. Instead, it's simply saying that somebody who decides that they're a woman, despite having male biology, is still a biological male. And likewise, saying that you don't believe that somebody can choose what gender they are is also not a judgment call. It's not a hateful thing to say. It's simply a statement about what you believe gender means and the implications of that as far as choosing what gender you are goes. Now, as far as I can tell, Rationality Rules does not say that you can't choose what gender you are. He simply says that choosing what gender you are doesn't affect the biological advantages you have as a male. Even this is considered to be hateful. This leads me on to a fundamental point. Even if the trans activists are right, they're still wrong. Even if they're factually right that you can choose your own gender, they are morally wrong for the way that they treat people simply for disagreeing with this claim. Even the relatively small amount of abuse I have experienced for speaking out against trans identity politics has seriously upset me. So I can't imagine what it's like for the women who speak about this much more often than me, who seem to receive much worse abuse than me. I've pointed this out before, but in one of my videos I didn't get a single death threat, but a woman who commented in agreement with me did receive a death threat. I find this to be very curious. And then on top of all this, women in general are subject to much more harassment and inappropriate comments than men are. So the fact that anybody would defend the way that trans activists treat women is absolutely disgusting, even if the trans activists are right. And that's the great irony here. People like me and Stephen, Rationality Rules his actual name, are accused of being hateful for making statements about what we believe to be facts. Stephen believes that biological males still possess physical advantages in sports. I believe that you can't choose what gender you are. In neither case are we saying that people who are gender non-conforming are immoral or disgusting, or making any other such judgment call. I believe transphobia exists. There are people who actively hate individuals who are gender non-conforming. Indeed, even the people who are mildly uncomfortable at the idea of gender non-conforming people could rightly be called transphobic. However, the statement, "I have no problem with the way you are choosing to live your life, but I don't believe you're a woman," or indeed, "I don't believe you are biologically female and believe you still possess obvious advantages due to the fact that you are biologically male," are not hateful statements, and they aren't transphobic statements. And indeed, saying that you disagree and that you think people can choose what gender they are is also not hateful. However, harassing women, sending rape threats and death threats to women, and also harassing men and falsely accusing them of being bigoted and hateful, that's a choice you make. It's a choice you make to cause somebody else to feel fear and sadness as a direct result of your attacks. That's hateful, and that's immoral. Stephen saying that trans women shouldn't participate in women's sports is not hateful. Personally, attacking Stephen and falsely accusing him of being a bigot based on a totally non-judgmental statement on his part is hateful. So let's imagine that tomorrow I came out and said that I've changed my mind completely. I agree with all the claims made by transgender activists. You can choose your gender. Biological males should be able to enter women's bathrooms and play in women's sports divisions. Indeed, to refer to trans women as biological males is an inaccurate statement to begin with. I still wouldn't change sides, because everything I've experienced tells me that one side is open to discussion and treats people fairly and with charity, while the other side shuts down discussion, treats people unfairly, and interprets everything everyone says in the worst possible way. So even if I do come to accept that I'm wrong on this topic, and I do go back into the fold of the mainstream leftist sphere of the internet, what happens the next time I'm wrong about something? Say, for example, I start reading the Quran without remembering to put on my leftist glasses and start talking about how it advocates beating women and raping your wives. Well then, I'm a bigot and a racist and I'm hateful again. And let's imagine that again I find my leftist glasses and I realise that actually no, Islam isn't inherently bad and it can be reformed. So again, I fall back into the fold. What's it going to be next? Because I like to challenge the views I hold to, and sometimes that means believing things that might make people uncomfortable, including a lot of stuff that would make the person I used to be uncomfortable. So inevitably, I'm going to find myself believing some other hateful facts before too long. As far as I'm concerned, if a movement is unable to distinguish between a statement regarding facts and a statement regarding morality, that movement must be abandoned by anybody with integrity. When a movement responds to statements concerning facts by saying, "Those statements are hateful and bigoted. I don't like those statements, so you should stop making them," then that movement no longer deserves any support. Even if you do eventually come to the conclusion that you were wrong about those statements, that doesn't retroactively justify the way you were treated for holding to them. I know that I'm not a transphobe, and I know that I don't hate trans people, and maybe someday I'll believe that I'm totally wrong to be gender critical, and that really trans identity politics is the way to go. But still, I'll know that I was not a transphobe. I'll know that my beliefs did not come from a place of hate, so I'll know that those who attacked me were wrong to slander me based on a falsehood. And I realise that facts can have political context. Walking up to a trans person in the middle of a street and shouting in their face that they are a man is a hateful thing to do. Just like it would be hateful to walk up to a black person and shout black crime statistics in their face. And it would be wrong to stand outside a Holocaust museum talking about how the number of ovens at Auschwitz was insufficient to cremate the number of Jews allegedly cremated there. There's a context for where it's appropriate to discuss these issues, and these issues should be discussed respectfully. But the context isn't not a tool. To address my opinions on those three issues in backwards order, I have no response to the arguments made by Holocaust deniers. It's not an area where I have an opinion, but I definitely think there is a context where somebody should be allowed to say, "I don't think you could have cremated the number of Jews allegedly cremated with the amount of ovens available. I don't think that statement in and of itself should be illegal." Likewise, there should be a context where we can discuss racial disparities. Now, in both these cases, if somebody is willingly misleading people and willingly ignoring the counters to their points in order to spread an anti-Semitic or racist agenda, then we can make moral criticisms of such a person and perhaps even take legal action. Now, when I talk about how I don't believe that you can choose to change from one gender to the other, I try to do so as respectfully as I can to the point of inconsistency. I refer to people who I don't consider to be women by female pronouns, because I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm not trying to be hateful towards them. I do everything I can possibly do to indicate that this is an appropriate attitude and context to be discussing these issues, and I'm still told that I'm a bigot for discussing these issues. So what more can I do? Because Rationality Rules made a video that dealt purely with science, purely with real-world examples, and even included a disclaimer saying he wasn't doing this to oppose trans people, and even clarified that he wasn't saying that trans women aren't women.
It's not about whether or not transgender people should be allowed to use certain bathrooms, or if they should be able to join gender-specific non-competitive clubs, etc. Or as the British Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies puts it,
many people are actually saying, look, come on, we are not transphobic whatsoever, but we understand that transphobic men and women have gone through a really tough process and we very much support them. But actually, we also need to support female athletes as well.
And yet still, people call him transphobic. And it wasn't a very small number of people. It was enough to get a very large atheist organisation to publicly identify him as having made transphobic statements. So what do you want? We're not talking about whether or not you can choose what gender you are at this point. We're talking simply, do biological males who decide they are women maintain certain biological advantages? And even that, with a respectful and neutral tone and a preemptive disclaimer, is not enough. Nothing will ever be enough, so why bother? I'd like to conclude with a comment I made on a Jenny McDermott video. Sometimes I wonder what the point is in unequivocally supporting the rights of trans people to feel happy and safe and accepted for who they are, when I'm just going to be called a transphobe by idiots for suggesting that who trans people are is not members of the opposite biological sex. Then I remember that I support the rights of trans people to feel happy and safe and accepted, not to signal virtue, nor to garner the favour of trans people, but because it's the right thing to do. Keep doing the right thing. That's what it comes down to. And that's the ultimate irony. Critics of transgender identity politics get no respect or kudos for everything we do to avoid being attacked by this mob. We keep things as neutral as we can. We keep things as respectful as we can. We make disclaimers over and over again. And clearly, we don't do it out of some foolish hope of actually stopping the hate that comes our way, because that hate comes no matter what. As much as we are called hateful, we bend over backwards to communicate to all those who will actually give us enough courtesy to listen that we are not hateful. And you know what? I'm speaking a bit generally here, because some gender-critical feminists don't do this. Some gender-critical feminists call trans-identified males men and accuse them of being predatory or accuse them of being autogynephiles. Many gender-critical feminists, particularly women, are angry, and they're past being civil in the face of so much hatred. Now, I would like it if things could be more respectful and loving and less hateful, but the more time I spend dipping in and out of this debate, the more I come to the conclusion that trans activists aren't owed even half the respect they're given by gender-critical feminists, because they repeatedly show through their actions that they don't deserve it. And again, you don't have to like me. You can say that my opinions are awful and transphobic and whatever else. You're wrong, but fine. However, the fact that you will call somebody transphobic for something as minor as simply saying that biological men have an advantage in certain sports over biological women tells me that your definition of transphobic isn't worth much. Anyway, check out Rationality Rules and What Do You Mean's videos in the description below. Please leave your own thoughts in the comments below. Like or dislike as you see fit. Subscribe and get the bell on for content both similar to this and completely different. Follow me on Twitter for very occasional takes. Give on Patreon if you want me to have time to research videos or make more videos. Apart from that, thank you for watching. Thank you to my current patrons: Hannah Taylor, LRX89, Stephen, Kirsten, Nancy Diamond, Stephen Lester, Rosemary Furman, and Eric Hernandez. You're all very appreciated.
Do it! Just